Forsake me, lying here in our bed. The crying that we do when we come unglued ain't a deluge we've seen just
Hello
yet.
Michael, I'm a huge fan of your work. I wonder if you could elaborate please on the desecration of nature and the violence and evil that's perpetrated against the animal species of the world, and how this fits in with the whole war on consciousness and how it affects our collective psyche. It's been my long-held belief that anybody who pays psychopaths to torture and rape and dismember bodies, animals, so that they can wear them or eat them or display them or whatever they do, is just one big sacrifice. That these people that do this are complicit in one enormous global blood ritual sacrifice. That's what I think this is, and I think that the impact that has on the consciousness must be astronomical, and I just wonder what your thoughts are on that. Thanks so much.
Hi, and thank you for all your wonderful questions posted to the websites and to the social media pages. I'll try to answer some of these questions as best I can. If some aren't answered, it's because either I'm clearly not an expert in those subjects. The questions may be great, but you know, they may be lying outside my field of knowledge or expertise, so I'll just pass on those, or maybe some of the questions are being answered anyway within the questions of other people, so pay attention to that. But again, just thanks for checking out my stuff through the months and years. Hope that you'll continue. I'll make references also in the questions to various websites and projects, videos, programs, that kind of thing. Start with Mark's great question. That's why I'm starting with it. I think it's so important, the whole question of animals. I know Peter Singer, one of the great utilitarian philosophers, has already proven beyond any philosophical doubt that animals are persons. I'm not going to go into the argument, but you know, one can pick up his books, Peter Singer, on ethics, his great work showing that actually animals are persons. So from a philosophical context, that answers all questions one would have regarding the rights of animals. They obviously do have rights. I mean, I would think they'd have rights anyway, even if they weren't designated as persons like we are. But because Peter Singer has shown logically that they can, you know, they bleed red, they operate in similar ways. We are part of a chain that maybe they're not as high up on that chain of consciousness as we are. They don't cognate futures. They don't contemplate their own death. They don't mull over the meaning of life, and they're not what's known as transcendent beings. That means that they don't sit there mulling the meaning of existence. They're not plagued with those questions. So that means that their entire concept of reality has nothing metaphysical about it, or even rational about it. It's based on instinct, which is we would always call it more primitive, but then again, it's not primitive, it's hypostasis, it's the foundation of what we are. So we stand on that foundation. We may have developed other faculties, but then again, those faculties may be bringing us to perdition. You know, so the animal kingdom and the planet itself may continue to sustain itself even when we're gone. You know, some of the more extreme pessimists just think of the human race as some sort of fungus, you know, some sort of, we're the animals. You know, Schopenhauer said that this world is for animals a hell, and men are the demons who torture them, and I think that's quite accurate, because our behavior towards animals is utterly reprehensible, and objectively, you know, it's dastardly, and it tells us something about who we are. So you know, the Native American Indians used to talk about that man is lost because he's lost what they call the center of the earth, and what that meant was he's out of touch with the earth as mother, as creatrix, and we're no longer heeding the ways of nature like the Druids in the area were doing. Our ear is no longer to the ground. We have lost the center of the earth. We're not in touch with it. We're not even in touch with it on an aesthetic level, which is what my Disciples of the Mysterium book was about. That once upon a time, man was deeply connected to the beauty all around him. mothers introduced their children to that beauty and to the ways of nature very early on when we were in a tribal setting. All of that is now gone. But nature spoke to us. The ancient Druids had their ear to the ground, and they not only noticed the physical beauty of nature, which actually gave rise to science. This is the argument I have in the Disciples' book, that our curiosity about the things of nature drew us close to those natures. What is a blade of grass? What is a sheaf of wheat? Let's go over and look at it. What is this dragonfly flying through the air? What is what's happening in these rock pools on the beach? What is this feeling we have when we see the sunlight, on a mountain, or the mist, or the dew on the back of a horse, or we watch the birds flying? So all of this activity in nature actually has enormous impact on what we call intellect, what we call reason, what we call science. Ha ha ha. And then if you really do your homework, you'll find that even science wasn't even a thing that men were that interested in. Science is entirely based in the goddess tradition. So Mark, head over there to unslaved.com, check out the Divination and the Goddess program I did. We touch on some of these important issues there. But when it comes to your question specifically about the ritualistic nature of what man's doing, the bloodletting, not just of the animal kingdom, that gets the brunt of it, but even we're not so chummy when it comes to one another. For millennia there's been wars, bloodletting, and I absolutely do believe it's ritualistic. We have to maybe define what we mean by ritualistic, but we can't do that here. In my Atlantis book I went into that, but all bloodletting is of some kind of ritual, perverse ritual. The symbolism of blood, the symbol of milk, the symbolism of imbibing the life force. The Neanderthals, when they buried their dead, they painted the corpses red, ochre, iron. The color red is associated with women, with blood, with the menstrual blood and all of that. And so there's something going on that's very intriguing, very, very fascinating. And then the whole question of just power over other people, control. And the penchant for that can become extreme, so it takes it out on the weaker. Animals are weaker. From the time of Descartes onwards, we just think of animals as sort of there for our usage, like a resource, just like coal is a resource, or any kind of grain is a resource. So animals are just a resource, and we disconnect. We're not thinking about what the causes are. If we imbibe their bodies, if we eat the meat, drink the blood, what are we doing to our own being? What are we inheriting disease from that? As part of the karma and all of that. So yeah, there's ritual elements involved. It goes back quite far. Even in the East, they still have primitive rituals involving the mass slaughter of animals for some apparently religious purpose. I mean, what can one say? One can't even offer a comment. It's so ghastly, so horrific that my work is what's underlying that. That's just an outplaying of some other bizarrity that doesn't look very holy to me. So, questions are asked. And we need to come to conclusions about it. We need to look into this, because man is... forget about what he's slaughtering. Why is he slaughtering? Why is he slaughtering anything? Why does he need to reach out? And, the Druids didn't even believe in cutting a single living thing with a sharpened blade. Just compare it to what we're doing today. And it's coming back to bite us in the ass, isn't it? Because the pollution that's in meat, even carried in stores in America and other places, is now just loaded with bacteria and causing frightening forms of illness. And still people don't change their ways. So it all might come around. What goes around comes around, you see. So there's deadly implications involved in all of this. But I would say that on the positive side, if somebody does clean up their act, if somebody starts to get back in touch with what animal intelligence is, if they become a vegetarian, I've been a vegetarian myself since 1982, I think it helps a lot. It's going to have enormous consequences for the body and the mind. So we'll leave it there, but there's so much that can be said. I'd certainly recommend all of the works of Peter Singer, because he approaches this whole question from a philosophical point of view. But he's written some fine books, him and other colleagues, on the question of animal rights.
they can't win, because I've all said in my other metaphysical work, evil contains within it the seeds of its own destruction. And one really needs to meditate on that deeply and also see it applied in your own life, with the tossers that surround us and all the other evil injustices that are done, even in plain view. Watch that experience. Watch what happens to a person that becomes, who's evil and ruthless and negative. Just observe it. And you'll notice that this is in fact the case, and it's certainly the case up the fractal. Evil contains within it the seed of its own destruction. The moment that you take that kind of anti-human negative stance, you're just waving a red flag to nature, go come and get me, which is exactly what's happening now. It's called the age of revealing and the age of awakening. All the message that somebody like me can give is, can you please get into the spirit of that? Because it's happening anyway. And you can either get into sync with it, or you can just sit there and be smashed when the river takes a turn. Your ego boat, right, will be smashed. Can you let go of the shores, like the Hopi prophecy says? Can you let go of the oars and go with that flow? Because it's a very dynamic flow, and it will handle it. What happens with us is that we think, oh my God, what's little old me going to do? It's really difficult, and then it becomes like you're suddenly taking it personally, as if your ego is going to be able to run out there like in the old days, grab a sword and do something about it. We have no capacity in that realm. It's a mixture between tremendous responsibility and self-awareness of it, but at the same time the ability to, as Neil was saying, go yin. Let go and let the higher force guide you, because without that guidance, you're pottering around. It's like a kid with a giant sword, playing games. A higher form of guidance and a higher form of strategy takes care of this. It doesn't mean abnegate your responsibility, but it means try to always remain with your head in the clouds but your feet on the ground. This is both a physical war, but it's also a psychic one. And the guidance that comes to you is the most important thing, and it will show you where to go and what to do about it. And that kind of particular guidance I'm talking about is not the same kind of sorcery that the Black Lodge has. They have high intelligence, and they have tremendous human knowledge about us on the most fundamental level. But they lack that connection to the higher intelligence. And that's their ultimate downfall, together with what I said about evil having the seeds of destruction within it. You choose that road, and you will be terminal. You choose the organic, living, feminine, flow of the Tao, and no matter what tyrannies exist in the world, no matter how things get bleak, even if things get 10 times as bleak as they are now, worse, like a prison planet, really and truly, as long as you're with that flow, you're in your center, and it doesn't matter, you see. So it's all about where you are, and they can't inhabit that place, which is why they want dominion, right, over the world. If you can't rise yourself, what's the next best thing? Push everybody down.